Hello, and thank you for joining for this BIM4N webinar. BIM4N is a European funding project that aims at developing BIM-based tools for the fast and efficient renovation of existing buildings. Here we are closing this series of webinar with demonstration of the tools that have been developed, and in this case in relation to the French pilot building. So I'm Antoine Duguet, working in Nobatec in F4, and here as coordinator of the BIM4N project. I will demonstrate 3 different tools that were developed in this project. So the initial point is considering the needs of a French social housing organization, here Polylogis Logirep. They are managing more than 100,000 dwellings across France, and more or less they carry out 10-15 buildings renovation per year. Their internal process is that they have a committee that identify the buildings that need to be renovated. Here the criteria are quite various. It can be based on their degradation, the state of the building, its energy consumption, if there are potentially also more politics related consideration, for example, an agreement with the municipality. Once they do this first assessment, they select a limited number of potential buildings to be renovated, and a manager is assigned to consider this building as potentially to be renovated, and there is a small budget that is allocated. And so there starts the investigation of the needs of the potential renovation for each of those buildings. So it's some they collect information, they define the objective, they assess the cost, they might run some energy audits or more even asbestos audits. And so it's quite in line with the process, the workflow that has been developed in the BIM4N project. But at this stage, one could say that it's not really digitalized, and they repeat the same process again and again, so there is some margin for improvements. So here what we consider is a set of buildings in the suburb of Paris. This is a typical French suburban architecture, so with poor architecture value, and there is a need for its renovation. It has already been renovated in the 90s, but a new, let's say, a renovation is considered. And so those are high-rise building towers which are quite identical, and for which the discussion about the renovation is both about its energy, let's say behavior, energy performance, but also about giving more value to those buildings, especially for the tenants and for the people living around it. What we might add as information, so there are in total almost 400 dwellings, so it's quite an important renovation that amounts to more than 10 million euros. The renovation design that had been selected is about mainly the envelope of the building, so external thermal insulation renovation, improving the air tightness, the air renewal of the dwelling is also to be modified, and the central gas boiler for heating and domestic water will be replaced. And then there are also obviously some other renovation which is not related to the energy performance, which is about the bathroom, the electricity, internal areas, external areas, security, and so on. We underline it here just to show that obviously energy is not the only criteria, and sometimes even it could be secondary if we consider, for example, security or other such criteria that could trigger the renovation. The objective of the development of the tools here were to digitalize the process and to consider at an early stage of the project the costs, the energy consumption of the existing state and under potential renovation scenarios, the CO2 equivalent emission under those different scenarios, and also, which a bit more important nowadays, it's about the comfort in the dwellings over the summer. It has to be quite quick but reliable, And also there is the idea of saying, okay, it's an internal process in this case, in social housing, in this social housing organization, but if there are some elements that could then be handed over to the contractors, it would be even more useful. So what I'm going to present to do some demonstration is a workflow of an early assessment of the potential renovation with quite easy to use tools. So it's in this case a building owner, but those tools could also be used by external contractors in the early design assessment of such a process. So what we start with in this case is 2D layouts of the building, and from those 2D layouts we are going to create some IFC model, a BIM model using plans to BIM by WiseBIM. And afterwards, this very BIM model will be imported into another tool that we will show, which is the BIM Solar tool by NRBIM. And the last one will be the energy renovation scenarios assessment with the tool which is called Renovation Manager. So I'm starting with a short presentation of WiseBIM, and then I will use even the tool. So WiseBIM, which is a French startup that few years old and that has developed Plans to BIM. Plans to BIM is a software, online software that will import 2D plans, 2D layouts as images, and by identifying the patterns through artificial intelligence, it will recognize the elements composing the building, walls, windows, and so on, to create a BIM model in IFC as a standard. So I'll go quick, but it's online web tool. It's a web tool in which you will have an access. You will use as inputs the 2D layouts, and through different steps, you will, at the end of the process, create an IFC file that you can either have as a 3x3 or IFC4. What's key also, it embeds a viewer, it embeds an editor. I will demonstrate. And so it allows in the model to recognize wall, windows, doors, slabs, spaces, which is information which is on top, let's say, of the geometry. It's information about what is wall, what is external wall, internal wall, window, and even properties of the wall can be added. So that's the process of collecting such 2D layouts. Either it exists before the even considering the renovation, or it has to be created by other kind of alternatives, such as a scan or a surveyor that will create those 2D layouts. And so Plans to BIM is, as you can see, is quite it's a web-based tool in which you log. You can create it's free to create an account. Then you create a project. Here I have a project which is already created. In this project, I will find my different buildings. In a building, I will find different floors. So in this case, in the Joinville building, this is the one that we are considering, I will import the plan layout. And from this very layout, I will then, well, it will recognize the PDF file I just imported that you can see here. I will import it. It is now uploaded, and then I will work on this very case. You can see the layer. So I will open it in the modeling tool, where I first need to, as an input, define the scale. So here I'm just going to zoom in. It's pretty easy, the typical buttons. And I recognize that in this, well, kitchen, these lands that I can adjust a bit is 445 meters. I will just put it there. Validate. It say that there are 74 pixels for a meter, which is quite it's okay. Let's just say it's not perfect. Could be a better quality. And when I've got this scale, okay, I can actually then run the automatic detection. I will run the full detection. I could do as a step-by-step, but let's see how it goes. There are parameters as to recognize the wall thickness. It might not be as much as those. And minimum length, so you can adapt a bit, okay? I will now run the automatic thickness. It is done on the wise beam 7. And you can see it's a quite short process. It will allow me to tell you that it is, again, free to use at this point. You are going to create beam models that you can edit, and you are going to pay only if you export it as an AFC file. So you can try it and see if the results fit your expectation. So you can see now the model that has been created, and now there's more information. You can see there are some blurry elements there and there. So it can be pretty easily, well, as you can see, I'm going to remove some of them. So I'm not going to the full process of modifying that. There is a stair here that has been poorly recognized. Okay, but I can, for example, use a wall and modify, oops. Okay, I'm going to use, I might have, okay, box selection, I'm selecting this, and you can see that I'm moving it. I want to rotate it, but that, I'm opening too much point, as you can see at this stage. It's the zone I'm selecting. I'm not actually selecting a wall, okay? So here, this wall, okay, I'm trying to fix some elements. You can see that the zone is created. I'd be happy if I could turn it, because it does tell me that it's a wall item. I want to rotate it, and not using this one, but right now I fail to move it. Yeah, so as you can see, I can modify it. I'm not clearly an expert user. It should be better done by someone who has been, let's say, testing it a bit more. Okay, so they just say that you can buy this using this heater. You can adapt quite easily the different elements. You can see that this is a door, which is recognized. This is an internal door. Those are external windows. And you can adapt a bit the balcony. You could adapt, for example, this element, which is not well placed, and so on. So once, and yeah, I should be the one working on that, but once you're happy, you can then export the model. At this stage, you can also just check in an internal viewer if it's well recognized. And the very problem that I had noticed are here, the slab is not closed. There are some blurry elements that should be fixed, let's say. So although it's not, let's say, a perfect recognition of the file, it's still something which is easily fixed, and you can do it quite quick. Okay, then if I am happy with these elements, I can save it, and then I will create potentially few floors like that. Okay, and once I have the few floors, I will create the full building. So the full building could be seen as an assembly of different floors, as you can see here. And I'm just saying that the 11 one is, and so on. I'm creating a building made out of 4 different. Okay, and once I have that, I should be aligning those 2 floors that at the moment are not aligned. Okay, the resulting process, when done a bit more carefully, is an IFC file such as this one. Okay, so this was done by let's say half a day trained user in half an hour. So you can see different stairs. So another tool is the beam solar tool. I'll be quick. The beam solar tool is a tool for urban planners, architects to assess the potential of PV installation for existing building. So the idea is to import a BIM model to assess the installation of PV panels, to assess the electrical production, and even potentially the cost of it. So you import a BIM model, and then, as you can see, you're going to install some PVs and so on. So BIM Solar is a desktop software. It's free again, so you can download it. You have to create an account, and then it's a standalone software that runs on your computer where you import a BIM model. It could actually be also a 3D model, which is not BIM. You're going to easily install some PV panels, as you can see here, either on the facade or on the roof with tilted elements. Those elements are then going to be assessed regarding the solar irradiation. Previously, one has to choose the exact location just to, let's say, have some weather data. The technical outcomes, the outputs of this project, of this software, is the electrical production, the potential losses in the wiring, and even a cost assessment and self-consumption under different scenarios. It's key to see that, as you can see in these dynamic images, that you can see either a yearly analysis, a monthly analysis, a daily analysis, or even hourly analysis. So it opens the possibility even to check the electrical production against electrical consumption. Again, very shortly, I will show that this is the very same building that has been at the beginning imported, where you can see regarding the sun pass, its irradiation. I can see at different moments. The one thing which is very important is the PV panels that you're going to install come from an external library made of PV panels as BIM objects. Those have been provided by the very same manufacturers. So if I change, I choose one, this is the one that I now have, and if I choose to install it on the roof, as you can see, I will have it. I will quite easily duplicate it just to assess the potential installation, and as such, well, obviously you can do it a bit cleaner than that. I've got this huge PV installation on the roof. I will then consider the wiring of the different elements. Okay, I can even say this is, I will just choose the first inverter and go with automatic wiring, okay, in between each of those. And from there, it's possible to assess for those elements, okay, the monthly production, as you can see, for each of those panel. And yeah, and once we have that, you can check on those different scenarios the network consumption and the self consumption if there is this electrical load from the building. So again, this is a free tool that you can find easily online that is based on BIM to assess the potential of solar installation. Philippe Alamy is the main developer with his company, which is called Enerbim, a French SME. Another tool is a renovation manager. The renovation manager, we will consider a set of buildings, a building management portfolio that for those buildings, we will consider different renovation projects. And for those renovation projects, we can consider renovation scenarios. So for example, there could be a low ambitious one and a high ambitious one as project. And then we describe the potential renovation of a building. The idea is, so we start at buildings in this portfolio, we then create those renovation projects, and then we focus on the energy renovation, and we run those simulations. What's key is that the building is composed of envelopes and systems, an envelope being walls, window, roof, walls, doors, and even the infiltration, which is related to each of those elements. And the HVAC system are mainly, I mean, not only HVAC, but ventilation, heating, domestic hot water, and lighting. And yeah, and the usage, the internal behavior of the tenants, let's say, is fixed. It's made under some hypothesis, but it's not something that could be changed. The idea being that it's not up to it's not part of the design. It's rather something which is related to the tenants themselves. So the idea is to then have to explore the results dynamically in graphs, and then to export the potential energy consumption and so on. So I will demonstrate that. So this is the renovation manager. Similarly, one gets to log on that. It's not at the moment, it's at a stage of development that's not allowed to have external user. Hopefully it will reach this point in the coming months or year. So in this case, we have a building that is created. We are going to use the fact we are going to consider its renovation. So first we need to add some information, basic information about the building regarding its facade area, well, the typical number of dwellings and so on. Then we will use an internal initial file that is used for energy simulation. In this case, it's done through the Energy Plus engine. So it's an IDF file. More information could be found in the BIM4N website. A weather file is also dropped here, and you can see that it has been already downloaded from the one computer. So those two files have been uploaded in this case. And the idea is to first describe the building. So the domestic hot water, it's pretty straightforward. We select if it's done with, in this case, a gas boiler, electric hot water, or solar collector, the volume of it, and so on. And so we do the same for each component, the heating system, and typically the window for which we are going to choose its frame material and its thermal characteristics. Okay. Similarly, the wall is made of layers in this case of concrete and insulation, for which we specify the characteristic and the thickness. So once this is done, the existing state of the building, we can consider some potential modifications. So modifications is, okay, my heating system is initially the one I just showed, but it could be done, it could be also a modified version with a higher efficiency, for example, that comes with a cost. Similarly, the window that I just showed is, I can consider a double glazing window with better characteristics, or even a double glazing window, but in this case, the frame material would be made of aluminum in one case and wood in another one. And the third one is a triple glazing window, so with different characteristics, okay? So then when I consider all those potential modifications, I'm facing quite a lot of potential renovation scenarios. This is not the one I want. So, well, if I go, I'm just using, let's say, dummy test here. But if I want to consider a case, the one that's been done here is we consider the domestic hot water boiler modification. We consider the 3 different heating systems, and we consider the modification of the windows. And at this stage, the combination of that is 64 potential scenarios. We are going to assess that. I'm not going to run the simulation because it has already been run. And so I'm just showing how it's presented. So all results are shown in this graph, which goes with the thermal comfort and against the energy consumption. So the lower the better for thermal comfort, and so the best are on the bottom left. Those ones should be the best scenario. So I can select those, I can see how they are made, and their characteristics are shown here. So typically this one is one with the existing domestic hot water, but also the modification of the heating system and just double glazing window. And the different energy consumption are shown into the circular diagram, but also the carbon dioxide emission, the thermal comfort, and the cost of it. So this is what the renovation manager is about, to compare, to explore those different scenarios, and for a potential social housing organization to be able to themselves be able to assess the potential renovation. And from there, this was 3 different tools that I showed, and more can be found on the BIM4N website, and that will be it for this French pilot demonstration.
My name is Natalia Lasarte. I'm from Tecnalia. That is a Spanish research center located in Basque Country. Before giving the floor to Martin, just a few words about the Spanish pilot and about how this adventure started. Well, when we started to draft this project together with Novatec and other partners, we were pretty aware that the planned developments should be user-centered. That's to say, they needed to be tested, discussed, and also validated by the end users during the whole process. And besides, the end user had to represent the common renovation company of the construction sector in Spain. In other words, a small size company with a low level of digitization, which is the majority of the overview in the construction sector in Spain. We already knew Cursal, which is a renovation company focused on facade renovation, mainly working on Basque Country and north of Spain. They are an SME with a relatively low level of digitization, at least before starting the project. Now the situation has changed. However, they were willing to use digital tools for on-site works and adopt the BIM methodology in the company. I mean to improve the efficiency of the on-site process. Besides, they had a wide range of renovation works that could be available for the project. Soon, then we knew that they were the suitable candidates for demonstrate the BIM4N tools in the Spain context. And from this point, we started to work together. Tecnalia has supported Cursal in the implementation of the BIM4N workflows on tools and developments on the pilot size. But on the other hand, Cursal has helped Tecnalia as developer to test their solution, and they give us interesting feedback from the user perspective. This symbiosis has been very fruitful, not only for the success of the BIM4N project, but for us as technological center, also for boosting the competitiveness of vast companies such as Cursal, taking the benefits of the digitalization as a key driver. So thanks Cursal for embarking on this journey and for allowing us to learn together. Yes, and yeah, now I give the floor to Martín Osa to explain in detail the Word doc and especially the lesson learned along this project. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Natalia. Hello everyone. My name is Martín Osa. I am an engineer responsible of BIM projects inside Grupo Cursal. My objective in this presentation is to talk about the needs of a company like ours and how we have been able to test different tools, different BIM tools that have been developed within the framework of this project, and how we have been able to face different challenges that we have in our daily work. Okay, so for that we have done it through several pilots, and I will show you some of the activities that we have carried out and some conclusions that we have seen after testing them. First of all, I would like to explain briefly what is happening. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Whoopa. Okay, first of all, I would like to explain briefly the process of a typical project that we, sorry, I don't know what is going on. Okay, yes, I know, sorry. Okay, now, how is a typical workflow in a project of Grupo Cursal? Okay, normally, usually the final client is a community of neighbors that wants to fix the pathologies of their building, and they want to do it through a property manager, or they can do it by themselves. Okay, so the first thing they have to do is to look for an architect that will design and will choose the best solution for their building. And in our case, it's always about the energy renovations of the facades of the building, like attics or ventilated facade. So then after this, they must start a bidding process to choose a renovation company to execute the project that has been designed by the architect. And in this step is when we have a first contact with the project, and we must study the work in detail in order to give them a most accurate budget as possible. Okay. So at this point, we already encounter several problems. For example, on the one hand, we cannot participate much in the initial design of the project because it has been done already by the architect, and so the success of the project relies a lot on the workflow of the architect. So if it doesn't work with the BIM tools, so we won't be able to do a lot of things. Also, in the other hand, and this is one of the major problems that we find in this sector, it is very common to have incomplete, outdated, or inaccurate information, which often makes it difficult to correctly calculate a budget of a work. Okay, so this is because there is no reliable documentation of the building. Many times the architects don't find the building plans, or if they do find them, they are not they are the original plans of the building that may usually it is not there are changes between the original plans and what have been constructed. Okay, so this is a very important issue for us because in large buildings, for example, since a small deviation of the dimensions, we can have a very large deviation in the cost of the works. So this is why we have to put efforts on making a good survey of the current state of the building. And also many times we don't have appropriate tools for making this survey. It is very common to work with a laser meter or making measurements to create a plan of facades. It is not enough for making, for example, the measurements of areas. Once we have made a first budget of the project, they will, for example, choose our offer, and this is a project. The project starts, and we have then very tight deadlines. We have to hire the professionals that are going to carry out the works. We have to start sharing documentation with the architect, with the clients, and everyone who is going to participate in the project. So a lot of documentation is generated at this stage: plans, images, budgets, technical documentations. So it is essential for us to have a fluid communication with all these stakeholders. We find ourselves, in summary, at the following point. Okay, we barely participate in the design phase. Our projects are not very complex, but it is important for us to have accurate plans, for accurate documentation, and we have to manage a lot of documents and resources. So we found that BIM for Rent could help us to with the management, for example, of these documentations, because BIM methodology is a great opportunity to better organize and share documents. Also, even if we don't participate in the design phase, it is interesting for us to help the architects that we work with in these phases. Also, we will be able to use different tools to better define the existing building, and this will finally stimulate the communication during the project. And finally, and very important, they have to be easy to use, okay? Because there will be many people with different skills using them, so they have to be easy. In order to test the tools, we needed to choose at the beginning some pilots to work with, taking into consideration that most of our projects are energy renovation of facades. We thought that most interesting would be to choose a project that represent this kind of buildings that are mostly energy renovations using ethics or ventilated facade. So thus we have chosen 3 pilots to test different tools. On the one hand, in the first case, we chose a baseline that would be used to compare the results that we get in the pilots. The objective in this case is to carry out an analysis of the different processes that in our company when working with, in the one hand, with traditional tools, and in the other hand with BIM tools. The second case is here we wanted to use as well the BIM tools and digital tools, but here we wanted to focus more on the study of the impact that these tools can have in the analysis and the energy performance of a building, and to estimate the positive effect that the renovation can have in the facade. So these 3 projects have been developed almost entirely within the duration of the BIM for Rent project. At the beginning, the tools that were going to be developed within this project were presented by the different members of the project of BIM for Rent, and also we made we studied the different tools that were available in the market, so we could choose the more interesting tools for us. So in order to apply all these tools in a coherent way, we made a workflow map where it was established which tool would be used in each phase of the project and what would be the best order to do it. So the result of one tool would be the input of the next one. Okay. We have tried all the time to respect some standard formats to encourage the interoperability between tools. And the results would be some kind of Excel files, IFC files, also normal documentation, but we will for that use some standard formats. And at the end of this presentation, I will show you in detail some of these tools that we have tested, such as HIS2EFC, PFC, and Base Plus, that are the tools that have been developed by Technalia. In addition, we want to get conclusions from the use of these digital tools in our projects. That's it. We want to have a feedback that we can quantify or measure somehow to evaluate the success of a work of a refurbishment project, and we want to have these results to estimate better the future projects in Cursal. In this sense, a methodology called the KPI methodology has been developed in this project, and it is quite interesting to us, and I will talk a little bit more about this later. Okay, so we defined the first pilots. The baseline was Bercholari Chirrita in San Sebastian 2. It is a big building, a big residential building of 15 floors. The renovation works started in 2020 and they ended 1 year later. And here we have, as we wanted to use it as a reference, we have measured different indicators, number indicators in this project. The pilot in this case was a similar building of 15 floors too in San Sebastian. It is more or less of the same period of the 70s, 60s. And also we have finished this project in 2022. Here, the main objective was to generate and use an as-built BIM model in order to calculate as accurate as possible the material needed for the works, the material that we had to buy, and to plan an optimum design of the execution of the ventilated facade. Okay, because it is a process that it is quite expensive for us, and we wanted to do it as better as possible. So in this case, the first step was to produce a reliable and accurate current state model that would allow the project managers to plan the project with confidence, or with the security that they want, that they will work with reliable measurements and distances. So to do this, the first thing that we made was a 3D scan of the building envelope using a Leica scanner, and we captured the geometry of all the facades and access the main access of the building. Also, we made the roof and some open balconies that were going to be renovated during the works. So once all the data was processed, we obtained a complete point cloud of the building that we were going to use as a geometric reference in order to make the BIM model, as you can see here. For this process, we followed a typical scan to BIM process. We introduced the point cloud into our BIM software that was auto-described. And so it has been a great, this BIM model has been a great help for quantifying the amount of material, to calculate the dimensions of the panels that had to be placed, and so that we could make an accurate plan of the cut of the panels in the factory, so we could reduce the generation of wastes and we would be faster in the works. Okay. The next pilot, the second case, was a pilot of a big residential building. There were like three buildings in one, so it started quite late in the project, but it is supposed to be finished at the end of this year. Here, the renovation was going to be made with ethics, but our main objective here wasn't to plan exactly how we were going to execute, but to calculate the material needed for the works in order to get a better price from the professionals that were going to work there, and also to generate somehow an energy model to compare it with the monitoring data that would be made after. In this pilot project, a scanning survey has been carried out as well. We have used it for generating a BIM model, and we have done it of a BIM model of the envelope and also of some dwellings that have been monitored and where we have placed some devices for doing the energy monitoring in those dwellings. So with this BIM model, in the one hand, we have calculated the work areas, the amount of square meters, the amount of material required for the work. And with this information, the manager of the works has been able to get a better prices, get a better price with each professional. We have analyzed the entire budget line by line, and also we have been able to separate it into different time phases. This is a great help in order to better manage the different phases of the building and to better manage the amount of material that we have to stock in our works and that we have to stock in our the logistic. We will improve the logistic of our projects. So in both pilots, in both cases, there have been tested different tools that we have that have been developed within the BIM for the project. It is true that several of these tools are not properly adapted to be used during the works because they are more adapted for early phases of a design of the project. But it is interesting to us to get a feedback to allow the developers to improve the tool and to identify those that could help the architects that we work with. So of these, between these tools, we will focus on those developed by Tecnalia. The last 3B tool piece and GIS2FSA and Base Plus. Anyway, once we have tested all these tools, we have make an analysis of all of them, and we have evaluated the different aspects such as usability, the speed, the ease of use, the processing speed, things like that. Okay. So the entire analysis will be reflected in the deliverable and will be published in the BIM for Rent website. So these three tools of Tecnalia, GIS2FSA, Parametric IFC, and Base Plus, is like a pack of three tools that we can use in a sequence, or we can enter in different steps of this process. For example, if we didn't have any documentation of the building, we could try to go. No, but if we have his document, shape document of the building, for example, the his is geometric information system that we could find some, for example, the perimeters of the building of a city. So it is a geometric database enriched with other kind of data, like the height of the building, so or the use of the building. So if we have access to some of this information, we could get a file that we can introduce in this tool in order to generate an IFC BIM model. Quite simple, but we can start working with it. If we didn't have access to this kind of file, we could enter in the second tool directly, and we can introduce the geometric form of the building manually. So it will create a BIM model based on the information that we input. So that it would create a more accurate IFC model with the facades, with the windows, with the height and the number of floors of the building. So we have a better base to start working with. And once with that model, we can start using Base Plus tool. That is, it is a tool for the decision of energy renovation alternatives using this BIM model. Okay, so depending on the results, it will lead us to choose one or another renovation depending on the more important aspect for us. Like, for example, maybe it is more important to make a cheap renovation, or to respect the CO2 emissions, or things like that. For the first one, I have there is a, well, here you can see some captures of the interface, but there is a video that I would like to show you. I have, okay. So that you can see how does it work. Okay, so as I said before, the first thing that we have to do is to locate the building. Okay, to identify the building. In this case, we did it with both pilots, with Serapio Mojica and Gastañón pilots. And once we have located it, we can try to find it in a GIS system. Okay, so here we can see that there was a perimeter geometry and the data like the number of floors and or the height of the building. And with that file, we can we have to introduce the building ID code in order to get from this database an IFC model that will use this information. Okay, so here you can see that there is a simple but it is already a BIM model of our building that it has introduced. It has inside the number of stories or floors. Okay. So once we have this, we can introduce it directly in the next tool, that it is parametric IFC generator. All these tools, they are together in a website, so we can jump from one to another directly, very easy. So we can introduce the IFC model that we have generated in the first step. We will introduce the IFC code, the IFC ID, okay, and we will introduce manually some data like the orientation, the amount or the size of the windows depending on the orientation of the facade. Okay. Also, we can introduce the thickness of the walls, the kind of the roof that it has, and it will, after a few seconds, it will create a new IFC building that it is more accurate than the previous one. As I said before, it is quite simple, but for example, we can start extracting some numbers, some statistic like the percentage of the windows on the facade, or for example, to use it for getting new renovation scenarios in the next tool. Okay, that is Base Plus. What we have seen in the video was in the case that we had an IFC model from the previous tool, but if we didn't have it, we can manually import some inputs to generate a geometric perimeter of the building with these kind of forms, like a square perimeter or like a cross perimeter. So with these steps, we can create an IFC model. Okay, the Base Plus tool, as I said, it is a tool for decision support tool for the diagnosis and data-driven design phase. So we will introduce an IFC file. We will introduce some manual inputs like the U values of the walls, like the heating system of the building, and with that, and using the E plus engine, it will generate different scenarios, and depending on the aspects that we will define as more important, it will give us different renovation scenarios. Okay, let's see another video quickly. There we have. Okay, so we will upload the IFC model. We will introduce some inputs like the location of the building, in which country and city it is located, so that it will calculate differently depending on the location. Also, we can introduce manually the U value of the walls and the heating or cooling system, as I said before. Also, we will ask him to simulate roof renovation and window replacement, for example, or the HVAC replacement. And depending on that, he will give us different solutions. Also, we can put in, we can weight differently different indicators, and we can extract an Excel file in order to use all those data more in a more advanced way. Okay, here you have. So, for example, here it is quite complex at the beginning, but here he will give us different scenarios, putting a more thick ethics system or a more thin one, or using ventilated facade. So depending on the scenario, it will be cheaper, or it will have a better impact on the environment or in the economic sustainability of the renovation. Okay. So after that, okay. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about KPI methodology. This is a method that we have developed in this project with some stakeholders of the BIM for Rent project. And the idea is to have some numerical indicators that will let us to compare and to evaluate the success of a building in an objective way. Okay, to compare, for example, the process of the performance of the building once it has been renovated. Finally, we have defined a lot of different indicators. Some of them, they are more oriented to assess the process of the works. Some of them are more oriented to assess the performance of the renovated building, but in the end, they are like a little mathematical equations, formulas that we can calculate, and it will give us some numbers that we can use to compare buildings. It is very interesting for us that because with this, in the early phase that we are studying a building or a project in order to get a budget, for example, depending on the indicators that we have got in previous projects, we will be able to better estimate, for example, the cost of a work, or the waste generation of a work, or we will better estimate the emissions of CO2 or the energy savings of a building. Some other indicators are some numbers that will give us like a number of the quality of the BIM process during this project, but they are quite subjective indicators that we have to introduce in a subjective way. I mean, they will say us how good have been developed the project, or how the technical abilities of the professionals that have worked in the project regarding the BIM methodology, or the BIM collaboration that has been during the project. These kind of things, we have decided also a way to define them. For our pilots, we have mainly focused on the next KPIs, that are the budget predictability, the schedule predictability, the human resources productivity, and the renovation wastes. That is because for us, they are the most important aspects, and they are the things that have a more impact in the success of our buildings. And also it has been very useful to have a BIM model and an ERP system in order to calculate all these numbers and all these indicators. Okay. And finally, to tell you that we have carried out an energy monitoring of several dwellings of this pilot. We have monitored 5 dwellings on Castañondo 1. We have monitored the indoor temperature, relative humidity, CO2, the gas consumption, and the electricity consumption. We have made it with some devices that are going to measuring the data every 10 minutes, so that we can get all this information. And for example, we have make some simulations using the TNO tool. So because we have all this data. And for example, one of the results were that we could, comparing the energy performance of the building and the renovation, and the captured data from the monitoring, we can estimate how was the impact of the users, of the neighbors, and how much of those results were related to their behavior, for example, from opening a window or something like that. And finally, we are working on linking this monitoring data with the BIM model that we have developed, so that we can give this information in an attractive way to the neighbors, for example, so that they can access to the data that have been monitored, like the energy consumption or the temperature in their building. They will be able to access to that data online. Okay. And finally, some conclusions. BIM in renovation is not only a set of tools. It will have an impact in the whole renovation process. That's why we told that it is important to work with architects from the very beginning using this methodology. Also, we have realized that all these tools, they are affordable to small and medium enterprises, because they are They are easy to use. They are not as expensive as other typical tools. So we encourage these professionals to use them. There is a wide range of BIM-based tools, even if they are not exactly BIM, but they are related, or we could use those data to introduce them in a BIM model. And it is important to adapt the use of BIMs to suit the companies and not the inverse. Okay. So we think it is a great opportunity to these companies like ours to use this methodology. So thank you. That was my presentation.
Yeah, welcome to a new BIM4N webinar. I'm Ignacio Torrents, Innovation Project Manager of R2M Solutions. And together with Luca Del Favero, BIM Coordinator of CMB Carpi, we're going to present now an outlook of the activities that took place during this project to test the BIM4M digital tools in our Italian pilots and their evaluation. So let me start introducing the renovation projects that acted as the pilots of the project in Italy. The first one in Venice, Italy, was the conversion of a relatively old 8,000 square meters industrial building into a university student dormitory. This renovation project, even though it was programmed to finish at the beginning of the project, of the BIM4M project, was helpful in two things. First, and most importantly, to understand and evaluate the traditional building renovation process, using it as a benchmark for what was coming next. And already we took advantage and introduced some initial digital tools that were useful at that stage, especially on the scanning side, to acquire the geometry of the building and the project. And the second renovation project was the pilot in Bologna, a large-scale renovation project in a 100,000 square meter shopping mall that wanted a complete restyling and upgrading of systems with certain energy efficient goals that had to be met. This project had certain challenges related to the COVID period that pushed back the initial finalization dates that we had in mind for the renovation, but it's been finalized as we speak. Well, it's September 2022, so this month. And CMB Carpi is the constructor for both of these renovation projects that I just mentioned, and are the ones hands-on, on-site, putting the BIM4N tools to the test. And finally, and as a final overview of the BIM4N and digital tools tested in this renovation project, I'll present you this graphical schema that highlights in red these tools that we're promoting from the project and trying to test in different phases, and they are structured in the schema as the phase that they belong to, from strategic planning to construction and commissioning phases. And with this, I'll leave you now with Luca Del Favero, which, as I mentioned, is the BIM coordinator of CMB, to give you his first-hand experience and testimony in the testing of these tools, the problem they solve, and how has been their integration in their day-to-day. So, Luca, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you, Ignacio. So today, starting with this workflow, we are going to see BIMQ software, then the use of scanning and Matterport, and then the experience in construction of Zutec and Rialto. So I would like always to start with the problem. When we arrive at the project, what we want to understand is facing the problem that we have during the day, in doing a BIM process in renovation. So starting from BIM-Q, what we can discover is that one of the problems in a BIM process is managing all the information connecting to a model and related to the contract that we have to respect. In this case, in Gran Reno. In Gran Reno, the client asked us a complete BIM process by contract, and for this region, what we want to test is BIM-Q, a software, a platform that can store all the information of the project, but not only. We start with initial setting of the software by choosing the exportation, so the IFC format, which kind of IFC we have to use it, which version, which kind of native software we have to use it, and then start to define the project. In which sense? Actors involved in it, and the specialization of him, so architect, engineer, the discipline, and then the phases in the project, construction, execution, and so on, design, and then relate which information has to be linked to this kind of phases. After that, one of the most important part is link all the information required in the model, in the element of the model that the client wants. So we start from the common Excel file that normally we use during this process that are very difficult to manage because you have some updates and then you have to share with all the actors. We start to implement it in BIM-Q with the aim then to mapping all the elements in the exportation and be able to associate to each phase the property that we want to have, of course, according with the timing and what we have to achieve as information. Here we can see the articulation of the platform. I mean, you have an environment, a shared environment, where all the people can be involved. Here is the login, okay? With a simple login, you can go through the platform. Then you can create a project, multiple projects also. And then you can try to set up your project. So the participant, all the email and information of the organization, and the rights, so developer, user, and so on. And then start to set which actor are involved, and then the phases. Then the use cases, so which are the which information we have to have in the project during each phases. As you can see there, cross in which phase we want the requirements, and then start to implement all the elements that we are going to have in the model. And through this kind of setting, we are able to define some exportation through the different phases that we have set it, and for software that we choose at the beginning. So the most important conclusion is that with an initial articulation of the experience. All right. Okay. With an initial articulation and let me say more slowly approach, you arrive to have a complete platform with all the information stored online, shareable with all the actors involved, and be able to export in the same time and when you want documents for the contract part, so the back part, to share with all the people involved. Share parameters and IFC property set already put in place and able to be used in order to organize the work in the native software and in IFC version. And then one of the most important part for our side, for the construction side, is the possibility to check the quality of the model from LOE part. So in terms of information, by creating rule set in Solibri, one of the software using for the checking in terms of geometry and information of the quality of the model. Conclusion, what we do for all the tools is try to share the experience of BIMQ, try from different people involved in the project the platform, and say, okay, which is the ad in the process, and using the KPIs methodology, what we achieve is that in terms of interoperability, of course, BIMQ is a good software, because from an input we are going to have a lot of outputs that can operate with different software. In terms of productivity, strict to the technical office, it increased a lot the productivity. Why? Because the information normally are shared multiple times per email for all the actors involved. Every time that when they lost information, for example, in this case, we don't have to lose this kind of time. But also another amount of time gain is related to the checking part, because before the checking in terms of LOE model, it's quite articulate. I mean, and it's able, it has to be done normally through exportation, QTO exportation. So for this reason, the productivity is increased. And then what we discover is that in terms of training, it's not so many the hours that we need to understand the usability of this software, and we can count it in as 2 days to understand how do the right things in the platform, and then the level of specialization. Of course, in this case, I have to say medium, because which is the problem? The problem is that normally the person in charge to do this stuff has to know also a general BIM process workflow, for sure, because has to know what is necessary during a BIM process, and then also know all the relation with the software. So know how the software works, for example, such as Revit, Solibri, and so on. Changing the tools, now we are going to see why we deep analyze the scanning with Matterport. We start always from a problem. The problem is already mentioned before. So we go on site, and normally, as a usual fact, what we have in the drawing is not the same things that we have on site. So So this is something very critical. For this region, it's necessary start the scanning, but it's not the only use of scanning. In fact, what we try in Gran Reno pilot is to use scanning for see the work progress status, scan to BIM, so generate a model, a BIM model through after a scanning, and then also understand if what is put in place in Gran Reno was accurate as the BIM model or as per design, in order to avoid critical issue with the client in terms of NCR and so on. Going through the slide, so you can see here an example of the use of Matterport in this case to see the progress on the progress of the work, also in a period as in the period the 20, so for the COVID-19, that helps a lot to have this kind of information because we can go on site every day. But for sure, this is a very useful tools to see if a work is done, if there is a progress, in order to make the payment to the subcontractor. After that, we are going to analyze the scan to BIM. So start with starting from an output of Matterport in XYZ through Autodesk FreeCap, we're able to use in Revit a point cloud that helps a lot in redefine the original status of the structure, architectural part, and for sure MEP part that are the most complicated and normally then less accurate. Here we have the final results for a slot of the gallery. As you can see here, we create from the scanning the structural model, the architectural model, the electrical model, the ventilation model, the hydraulics model, in order to create a federated model that is useful for us to generate a coordinated construction design and go then in production for each element. Here you can see the complete gallery done with a complete scanning of the zone. Before we are seeing only the G003 part. And then the BIM to scan. So the idea is to have to check the accuracy of the what we have on site in order to see if the things was right and correctly put in place. This for avoid, as already said, NCR. So conclusion for these scanning tools in general are that nowadays the cost of the scanning is descending in terms of price. And the advantage to use this technology is affordable also if we consider what signify to don't use it. So which are the impact in terms of cost, time and cost if we don't use this scanning before start with the works. And then in terms of geometrical accuracy, what I want to say is that it's high if we choose the right tools for the right work. So basically what we have to consider is that building in general, and when we talk about architectural map system, we don't need a millimetrical precision, but we need a centimetrical tolerance. So this is something that we have to consider when we want to choose a tools that it's not so precise, but precise enough for what I want to do. And then the training required for use the tools that are always related to the level of specialization. What I can say is that if someone is already used to, in terms of surveying and managing the point clouds, for sure can in 3 days be aware of using Matterport in this case and able to use it himself. So this is the part for scanning. And then the last one that are related to the construction part, on-site part, is the use of Zootech platform. Zootech at the beginning, so Zootech platform which problem solve? Solve the problem of tons of dog printed and scanned that are stored in the office, normally in the quality office, that brings all the stuff related to NCR, snag list, and so on, that normally are related and connected through an Excel recap, manually updated, and most of the time full of error. And then all this stuff are sent through the responsible of the quality to many subcontractors or the client in a tons of emails. So difficult to track, because when the responsible change in a long project and so on, it's quite difficult to manage all this stuff. For this reason, so we start to see what Zootech can do. And from the very beginning, one of the best things is that you can set all the workflow that you want. Okay, so as you can see there, we set up the workflow for the NCR, both from directly the general direction of the work or from the specialistic one. And then another important thing is the possibility to create custom dashboard that are able to show to the responsible or also to the project manager of the work the results in terms of quality. So the status of the NCR, because are related to economical aspects, of course. And then, as you can see, another important task and utility is the possibility to change from a mobile version and a desktop version. I would like to say that is the most important characteristic that a platform for quality and on-site purpose has to have. So the possibility to change from mobile version and desktop version without lost the information, but to complete the information, it's something very useful. And then, of course, link this task to a plan in order to locate it, the NCR. For Zootech, what we understand is that it's, of course, something useful in terms of interoperability, because we are able to organize all the data, but then also export this data in PDF, Excel file, create direct message to the subcontractor. So we have a lot of output from this side. Increase the productivity, yes, increase the productivity because we don't lose time in searching, explain. For example, one of the most common problem was that the NCR DIM are input as people want. So sometimes other people can't recognize the DIM. So it's quite a big problem, and it's something also very appreciated in terms of training and level of specialization that is easy to use, and also with a low specialization level, because we have just to know the construction process workflow. So we have just to know what is an NCR or which is the process in an NCR. And then we test Rialto. Rialto is a beta software, augmented reality technology, in order to accelerate and improve the quality on site construction for snag list, audits, and so on, and integrated in Zutec. Example in Zutec. So here I would like to show you some images. So hoping that you are able to see all the video. Here you can see what we did in Gran Reno. So the idea is to go on site through a glass, okay, in order to see the augmented reality, and then start to see the opera building, the reality of the building already in place, and then open an eventual NCR, snag list, or what you have to do. In this case, for example, a tile appear broken. So what we do is sign the tile, setting all the information in order to evaluate this problem. And then, of course, as you can see, also the people go through the evaluation. And after that, be able to see these things associated to an issue in Zutec. So track in Zutec, go in the office and be able to acquire all the problem and try to solve the problem. I think this is the idea. So here the aperture, okay, and here the broken. So la mattonella, the tile is to replace, and we know exactly what we have to do and where we have to do. Going through, so also for Rialto, we try to evaluate make some conclusion of the tools tested, and what we can say is that always in this case, the augmented reality is nowadays something where in descending price. So the advantage can be really are affordable and can be really high. The productivity is increased, yeah, because in which sense? Because when we go on site, we have to work with people that are not used to model, are not used to let me say digital things, but are used to reality, and the augmented reality is the right link to these things. And then training required for this stuff. I would like to say that a more deep training is required, but just because we have, of course, get used the people to use these glasses on site. That it's a quite deep dim that it's necessary to better to go in detail and better articulate. But for the level of specialization, everybody can go on site and start an issue. I finish, so thank you for all, and that's it.